Okay, so for part B, you're going to get a paper, same way you did for part A. You're also going to get given a database file. So the database file itself, you don't need to edit in any way. You leave the structure as it is, so don't change any tables, don't add any validation or anything like that. It does tell you here in the paper that, but you might skip over it. So just make sure you're not changing the structure of the database. There's no benefit to doing that at all. Okay. So part B, you are looking at two activities essentially, part A, part B within it, and they're both forms. So in the first part, you covered database structure, validation, queries and reports. And in this part B, you're looking at creating some forms from the data they've already given you. So A is usually an easier form, B is more difficult. There are things you can do to try and get as many marks as possible working through it. So I'm going to take you through the first one now, which is A. It's still to do with vending machines and so on. This is creating a form to add a drinks machine to the database. The form should be ready for data entry, so that means the boxes need to be empty, ready to have data put into them. The purchase date must be present. The purchase date must not be in the future, so we can do something with that. The machine must be assigned a valid brand, so very similar to something we did in the first part. And valid data should be appended to the machine table, and a save message should display, and the form should be cleared ready for the next data entry. So there's quite a few steps in that one bullet point there. A suitable error message should appear where invalid data has been used. So these two parts are the higher tier parts of the question. These bits, fairly straightforward, based on the forms you've already done. We'll look at part B a little bit later. But let's have a look at the database. So this is the database they give you. It's got 4 tables in it for this one. So you've got a table called brand, and this has a brand ID with some coffee and drinks machines names in there, their sizes. We've got a machine table, which has the machine ID and a brand ID, when it was purchased, and the operator that works on it or installs it. The machine reading, so this is data that comes off the machine to say how many drinks is dispensed. So we've got some dates for when it started, the machine that was read, what number was on there, how much money it collected, and the last one then are the operators that work on these machines, so you can see how they all link together. So close all of those back down. Just leave them sat there in the background. You may in the exam want to go into database tools and relationships to see how they're linked together. So it might give you an understanding of how these tables are talking to each other. So we can see that one operator is linked to many machines. We can see that one machine reading can be used, many machine readings can be taken by one machine, and one brand can be associated with many machines. So it makes sense when you lay it out like that, but it's probably a good idea to have a look at it so you can see how these things talk to each other. I will save the layout so it's a bit nicer. Right, so on to our first question then. If we have a look here, we need to basically make a form that's going to allow us to add a drinks machine. It's pretty straightforward. So into here, we're going to go to create, and for this one we could use a wizard. And we will choose the machines because it's for adding a new machine. So in this, I want the machine ID. I want the brand, which is going to come from the brand ID. I want the date it was purchased and the operator that works on it. So it's basically that table. Take it through to this. We always leave it in that layout so we can customize it later. What do I want to call this? I don't want to call it that. Form. So it tells me what it does, and it tells me it's a form. And finish, there's my form. Now that already does some of the things in the mark scheme. Not very well, and you're not going to get particularly high marks, but you will get some credit for, so you won't get that one. It's not ready for data entry. The purchase date is present. Purchase date is not in the future. We haven't done anything to stop that being changed yet. The machine must be assigned a valid brand, which it has, but we can again do something to change that as well. So we're going to have a little look at that. So first things first, let's go into design view where we can start to customize it. Now, unlike the reports, we can give ourselves a little bit of working space to move things around a bit. Now we're going to have to change some things that we did just now. Should probably make a nice heading to go across the top. I'm not going to bother for this video, but you could do. You could also put some little input instructions telling the user how to access the form a little bit easier. But basically, I've got to make sure that the machine ID, sorry, the brand ID, is a valid brand. Now, there are ways we can go in and type things in and do it, but the easiest way is to delete that off there and add in a new field. So up in here in our form design section, we've got this big toolbar. Now, one of these is a combo box, which is not that one. Sorry, there we go, that one. And we just click, and it will put two fields, a field name and an unbound field. But it automatically brings this window up. So this window is going to take you through the step-by-step, just like we did in part A, for making a drop-down list based on another table. So if you look, it's already selected. I want the combo box to get values from another table. So we do. We want the brand ID to come from the brand table. So we click next. So which table is the brand ID in? It's in brand. Which field do I want? So I want, actually, the brand name to make it look a little bit nicer. You would still get credit if you did brand ID, but the brand name will look more professional. So I'm taking that, selected it, going to click next. You can sort them if you want to. Sometimes the question may specify sorting. If it does, just choose that and sort it. It doesn't in our case, so I'm just going to click next. It gives me a little preview of all the brand names available. Next, and remember, there we go. Click next. And what name do I want for it? Yeah, brand name is fine, but I do want a space in there to make it more user-friendly. And finish. So now I've got this. Now we're just going to test that. So we're going to go back to form view. And there's my drop-down list. You can see it's cut off a little bit, so I need to go into design view and just fix that little issue. And I'll also show you how we evidence it for the exam as well. Let's just double check that's okay. Yep, there we go. So to evidence it, make sure you've selected the field that you've just created. Go over here to data, and you can see you've got this row source here now. I've just realized you may not have the property sheet on, so I'll just reset mine. So your screen probably looks like that to start with. If you go to the top, you've got this property sheet button. I'm in form design for this. Property sheet will bring this here. I've expanded it out so that you can see the row source all the way along. So your evidence is this here, along with that. So the examiner can see which fields you've done. So that's your evidence that you would submit as a screenshot. And then we're basically going to do the same for the operator, because if we look at the paper says, so the form should be ready for data entry. Machine must be assigned a valid brand. We've done that. It hasn't actually mentioned the operator. Let me just double check. Okay, so one of the other ways you can do this is, because we've got operators, we should, as good practice, basically make sure that we can only put in an operator that already exists. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to delete that operator ID. We're going to go up here to our combo box. We're going to click. Make sure it's on the get values from another table. Click next. Go to operators. Click next. I'm going to take this surname because it makes more sense to a human. I'm not going to sort them. There's our operators. Next. Next. And just put a little space for user friendliness and finish. Again, you just need to space those apart slightly. There we go. Line it up with the other fields. I'm not doing a very good job lining these up. And there's my evidence here on the row source. You can see that it's getting the data from that table, and this is the data that it's taking. Okay. So that's your, basically we just have a little test. Yeah, there we go. So that's all working. Back into design view. And now we're just going to run through the final part, which is the save button, which is the more difficult part. So this is the top part of the question. And it's going to cover all these things. So it's going to make sure the purchase date is there. It's going to make sure it's not in the future. We've already done the valid brand part. We haven't done the saving it to a certain table. That's what appended means. It means save it to a table. We haven't done the save message, and we haven't done the form reset, but we're going to do that now in something called a macro. So a macro is a set of automated tasks that run one after the other that we can attach to a button. So the first things first is I want to save my table here, my form, sorry, before we go any further. And then I want to basically start creating my macro. So I click on create. I go over here to macro, one of the things we haven't used before. Click there. This is my macro. You can still see my form is still there. And basically we're going to build this up step by step. For the exam, they always follow the same process. So we've got to click here for add a new action, and we get a drop-down list full of different actions. Now the first thing we want is an if. So we're asking questions. Okay, so it's if something happens. So basically, looking at the question, I want to say that if the brand ID is left blank, then I want a message to pop up to say you must fill in the brand ID. If is null. Now we've used that before. Notice there's no spaces in a macro. Okay. Because I've said if, I need a regular bracket, and then I want to target a field name, which in this case is going to be brand ID, and close the square bracket because I finished calling on the field name, and then close the regular bracket. Now, because my screen's quite big, you've got this big empty bar, and then the word then. So we've got to think of it like a sentence. So if brand ID is null, then, and then we want it to do something. So what we want it to do is pop up a message. So in this little drop-down list, we're going to choose message box. There's lots of options in here. We don't need to know many of them, but message box is probably the most frequent one. Message box, and then quite simply fill in some of the things next to the head. There's very little we need to do here, really. We need to give a message. So you must select a brand. So that's just telling the user, if they leave brand ID blank, then this message pops up. Okay. Then we need to add an otherwise if. So if I click back in this section here, you'll see you've got these options here, add else or add else if. So we want an else if, so that means otherwise if. So if that condition is not met, what else are you going to do? So if that's left blank, then display this message. Otherwise, if it's not left blank, what's the next step for it? So we basically want to make sure the purchase date part of the question now. So if you remember, it can't be left blank and it can't be a date in the future. So we've got our if. So we say is null, because that means obviously blank. And in there, we're going to have a purchase date. Now, remember, these have to be typed exactly the same as they appear in the database. So as long as you haven't changed them, which you shouldn't have done, it should look like this. I did miss my square bracket at the start there. And there's my square bracket around that. Close my regular bracket. So it is a little bit confusing, I realise that. So if purchase date or if purchase date, let's just go square brackets again. So same field name is more than, so this is the date in the future. We target today's date, which is always date, and some empty brackets. It's not a zero. If you look, 2 brackets with nothing in there. What that does is it says to the database, look at the system clock down here, and if it's more than that, then do this. So what do we want it to do? We want it to display another message box. So this basically means if they've left date blank or they've put a date in the future, then we need to pop a message in. You must enter a date in the past. Oh, not post. In the past. And that will be that one covered. So if we look at the paper again, we've now got purchase date present, purchase date must not be in the future, machine must be assigned a valid brand. So we've done pretty much half of the question there. And we'll cover the last 2 bits now in the bottom part of this macro. So then we've done an otherwise if, and then we've got the final otherwise. So we've still got our then. So otherwise if that, then do this. And now we just want to add an else. So this is pretty much the formula for working through it every time. You've got your if, then, else if, else. And the end if is just the end condition. This is the important part. This is the last bit. So now that we've made sure the brand ID is filled in and that the purchase date is correct, we want to save it as a new record. Okay, so the thing we can do here is we can choose a run menu command, which is here. Okay, now what this does, this basically says what you want it to do, and we want it to save record. Now there is a drop down list full of options in there, so you don't have to remember them. It's just a big drop down list, but we want save record. Okay, so you can type it or select it from the drop down list. So once it saves the record, if we don't do any more, it will save and it won't tell us anything. So basically we want to tell the user that it's been saved, just so they know, because lots of us question when we save something, has it actually saved? This message will tell the user, yep, it's saved. So we can just put a message in there saying details have been saved. And then the last part, so if we just double check the paper again. So done. It's saved to the machine table. A save message should display, which we've just done, and the form should be cleared ready for the next data entry. So that's the last bit we've got to do. The form should be cleared, ready for the next data entry, which will then get this one as well. We've already covered the suitable error message. So this is the last bit. So how do we reset the form and get it ready for the next record? So we've got our message box, and then we've got one more action, which is a go to record. So this will allow you to start a new record. And it says next. Now we can change that, if you look, using the drop down list on the really wide box, to new. So that's how you get a new record to save. Now if we look at the paper, ready for data entry, purchase date is present, it's not a date in the future, the date is being assigned a valid brand, the valid data has been saved, save message should display, the form has been cleared, ready for the next data entry, and we've got error messages where invalid data has been used. That is all of part A for a full set of marks. That is all of that. However, what we haven't done is we haven't assigned that to anything. So at the moment, that doesn't do anything. We need to attach that to a button on our form. So we're going to click close. We're going to say yes to save. We're going to call this our save, so we know what it is. You should also screenshot this for your evidence for the examiner. That's really important. Click OK. And then we go up here to our form design options in our form. Get an action button like we've done lots of times before. Draw the button, it launches the wizard. We need to go to miscellaneous, so bottom on the left, and then run macro. So that will run one of the macros that we've made. Click next, there's our macro. We called it save. If you've got lots of macros, they'll show up here. Make sure you use a suitable name for it so you know what it is. Click next. What do you want this macro to look like? I want this to tell the person that it's a save button. Next, and finish. And there we have it. There's our finished form. It needs a little bit of customizing and tidying up. You can spend a couple of minutes doing that. For full marks, you should really be moving these down together slightly. A little bit of instructions here using a label tool, just to tell the user what to do. Put your heading in the center, make it bold, make it make sense. Don't make it say FRM at the start of it, but basically just make it look like a really nice form. And that is all of part A. I'm just going to pause the video a second and then we'll get started on part B. Right, okay, here we go. Activity B. So this is the last part of creating stuff in the database. Now after this is just testing and evaluations. So we've got to make another form that will analyze meter readings. So we need to look at meter reading data. The form must not include validation. The form must not include an automated routine to save data, because we did that in the previous activity. So those are just things it shouldn't have, so we can sort of go past those quite quickly. There must be a combo box to select a machine ID. So we need a drop-down list that allows us to choose a machine ID, like we've done before. For the selected machine, the user's got to put in the week beginning date, the meter reading, the money collected. So this is basically a form for an engineer to fill things in. So they choose their machine, they put the date at the beginning of the week, they put the meter reading in, just like you would if you're doing your gas or electric meter at home, and they put in how much money's been collected. So that's pretty straightforward so far. The information for that machine must be generated and displayed on the form. So we've got to display the highest meter reading stored in the table for that machine, which is the most recent meter reading. That is quite a complicated sentence there. So we need the highest meter reading stored in the table, which is the most recent. Okay. The number of drinks sold, the amount of money expected, and the words call engineer should appear if the money collected is less than the money expected by more than £10. So let's just quickly slowly go through these. This is the hardest part here, this bit here. So we've got to try and find the highest meter reading stored in the table. So there's a little trick to that one, I'll show you in a second. We've got to be able to display the number of drinks sold. So that will come from the previous data. How much money should there be then? So we know how many drinks there are, so we should be able to work out how much money there should be, because we can multiply the drinks by the cost of the drink. So basically, depending on which drink has been sold or how many drinks have been sold, multiply it by the cost for one drink, and we should get the money sold there. So that's just a simple calculation. And this part here then, the words call engineer, so we've been told what we've got to put as a message, if the money collected is less than the money expected by more than £10. So there's basically a tolerance level for the machine being out by £10. So the words call engineer should appear if the money. So here's our clue there, if. So we need to put an if statement somewhere in this form that if our total money, so this one here, sorry, based on that one there, is less than £10, sorry, it is out by more than £10. So we've got to get our total for that. Okay, so there's going to be quite a few steps to this one. Now, their expectation, even reading through the examiner's report, the expectation is that very few people will be able to do all of these things. What they're looking for is you to attempt each bit of it, and you'll get credit for the bits that make sense that you've attempted in there. Okay, so this is the hardest part. This is the high-grade differentiator. It's significantly bigger than this one here, and there's going to be a lot of different techniques I'm going to show you in this as we go through it. Then after this, it's just evidence and testing. Okay, so this is the last part of database work. So we're going to jump to our database. This is the previous one. So we've got our 4 tables, our form from part A, and our macro. And we're going to start with a query. Okay, because one of the things we've got to have is the highest number, so the highest reading, highest meter reading in the database. So we're going to go to create. We're going to click query design. And from our tables, we need the machine reading because we're looking for the highest reading. So there's our table. Now, what we need is a new field that is called highest reading, because we need to know the biggest number in there, basically. What field is that based on? So it's based on the machine reading. So this field here. Okay, so it's going to take that field there. I'm typing it exactly as it appears. I'll just make that box a bit wider so you can see it. Okay, so highest reading is the machine reading. Now, if you remember, we can click on totals up here, and we can then, where it says total down here, we've added this row, we can change that to max, which will give us the highest number in that field. Now that's the query that's going to be part of our form. Okay, so we're then going to save this. Yes, I want to save, and I'm going to call this one query highest reading, so I know what it does. And I've saved that, there it is. So now I can go to my form. So for my form, I'm going to go to create and use the wizard again. And I'm going to take a few different things here. So I need machine info, but I also need machine reading info. So we're going to take it from that table. So we're going to take the machine ID, because I've got to be able to have a machine ID. I've got to be able to put in the week beginning, the date. I've got to put in, excuse me, the meter reading, and I need the money collected. So it's all based on this one here. I'm also going to take my query. So I haven't gone to the next step yet. I've changed that, and I'm going to take that over. Now I'm not going to use that exactly as it is, okay? But I need it there to refer to it later on. Oh, actually, do you know what? If we're getting that error message, we'll choose not to. We'll just go to the next step. We can add it in later. I want to give it a new name. So this one is going to be form. Try that again. So this is the meter readings form. So it's nowhere near done yet. We should be obviously customizing and doing lots of different things. So if we go into design view, let's have a little refer back to the question. It must be a combo box to select machine ID. So let's do that first. Let's jump into our form, take that machine ID off, put our new combo box in just like the previous part. Going to get those values from another table. Next, I'm going to get those from the machine, but I want them in the machine reading table. So there we go. I'll take that one. Oh, forgot to click the arrow. Click next. Next, there's all the machine IDs. Next, and finish. So I got my machine ID. So I've already ticked off one of the things in the list from the exam. Right, the next step now is to make sure all of these things are correct. They are, so we've got those. Just run through my notes, sorry. So now we need the highest reading for that machine. So we need to use these text boxes, not labels, text boxes, because they do things. So I'm going to click that. There it is. And I'm going to add a new one here. So this one is going to be the highest reading. So this is just a label, so that can just look nicer. Just spread that over to there. Oh, sorry. Let's get that over there, and then we can move this one over there. Okay, so this unbound box here, this is going to get quite big. So let's give ourselves some space, make the box a bit longer. And in here, we're going to type in quite a bit of what looks like fairly complex code to start with, but it's pretty straightforward. I'll break it down for you in just a second. So we're going to type in equals DLookup, and then a bracket, because we always have to do a bracket after we've said lookup. Okay. Then I'm going to take that, and I am just going to have to refer back to my query a second. What did I call that second field name? I called it, sorry, it's gone small, highest reading with no spaces. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm doing is I'm calling on that value from that query. So I'm going to say highest reading. Okay, just move my mouse out of the way so you can see. And then comma, which I'm going to separate. Where is that highest reading? It's inside this query. So I called it QRY. Highest reading with no spaces. Close that, close that. So basically what I'm calling on now is a domain lookup. That's what DLookup stands for. Domain lookup just means set of data. So in my head, I often just think of it as data lookup. So it's looking up data within a certain area for me. So it's looking up data in the field called highest reading inside the query called highest reading. Okay. So let's just see if that works. There we go. Brilliant. So we've now got our first complex feature in there. So I'm going to pull that box just back over there. The examiner will need to see this code that you put in, so make sure it's visible, okay? Now I'm going to add another box underneath. Give myself some space. Pull that one over there. Again, going to make this box bigger so we can type into it. This one's not quite as long. So this one's going to be our drinks sold. So how do you work out the drinks sold? Remember, you can always look back at the 4 tables to work out what sort of maths you may need to get the computer to do for you. But what we want is equals, we want to reference a field name, meter reading, so you will have to look at the table to make sure you type it right. Close that, take away our newest one, which is okay, close that one. Now I haven't tested this one yet, let's make sure this one works. Yeah, I've got an error in there, thought I might. Okay, sorry guys, realised what the mistake was. In the drinks sold section there, previously I had machine reading take away the highest reading, forgetting that I hadn't actually named anything highest reading. So when I had highest reading in there, it didn't know where to get that information from. So that's where we get the name error message, because we've got something it doesn't recognize. So I need to give it a name. Now I want the highest reading, which is in this box here. So if you click on this box here, bring out your property sheet, and then over here you can see it's got a name. It's called text 11. You can change that if you want to. You can change it to highest reading. If I change that actually to highest reading, it will also work. Let me just click back on it, make sure the name is saved. Yep, there is highest reading. And now without even changing that bottom one, if I go back into form view, there we go, we can see it's working. Okay, we've got a number in there. I don't really care what the number is at the moment. I just want to make sure that it's working. So I've now got the highest reading, how many drinks have been sold, by taking the meter reading and taking the other one away. The next thing to work out is the drinks sold, sorry, the money expected. So how much money do they expect now? Having worked out what the highest reading is, how many drinks they've sold, we can now work out what money we're expecting. So this one is money expected. So this should be automatic. This should be calculated to tell the engineer if it has worked or not, basically. And there's either missing money or no missing money. So let's expand this out as well so we can see. In here, we can do very simply equals. And we can open a regular bracket, just doing a regular expression. Take our square bracket for drinks sold. Now we'll have to change something around in a second. It won't work straight away. So we've got drinks sold. Close that, then that. Oh, sorry, not that. Multiply it, which is a star and a shift and 8, by 1.2. Otherwise, show 2. Now we can close our bracket. Now that's not going to work at the moment because, again, it doesn't know of anything called drinks sold. So if I just change the view just to show you, we should get, yep, there we go, name. If I tell it that this box here is called drinks sold, up here in the name, exactly as it appears there, we should, fingers crossed, yeah, so we should expect nothing because we've got a negative number there. That's fine. The only other thing we're missing in there now is to make it currency. So if I click on here, there's two different ways. Well, there's a few different ways you can do this. The easiest way is to select the field, go up over here in your property sheet to format, and change the format for that data to be currency. Okay, that will give you pound signs, decimal places, etc. when it's appropriate. So the money expected, I know we're not getting an error, which means it's working, okay? I know we haven't got an answer in there yet. So now the last part, I just refer back to the past paper. So we've done the first two bits. We've got a combo box to select the machine ID. For that machine, we can put in the week beginning date, we can put the meter reading in, we can put the money collected. So we can do all of those things. The information for that machine must be generated and displayed. So we get the highest meter reading, which we've got here in our DLookup. The number of drinks sold. Drinks sold is the machine reading, take away highest reading. the amount of money expected. Well, ours is negative because the numbers are a little bit crazy in there. And the last part then, the words call engineer should appear if the money collected is less than the money expected by more than £10. Okay, so let's do that bit. So it's an if statement, isn't it? We're going to get the text box. We're going to click, drop it in. We're going to spread these around a little bit. I actually don't want that one. I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm just going to make this box wider so we can see. And in there, we're going to have an equals I if. Remember, if we say if, we have to open a bracket. And then I'm going to use my square brackets to say, so if money expected take away the money collected, which is up above. So that one, oh, if I could type it properly, that one would have picked it up. Money collected is more than 10. Then show the message, call engineer, which is exactly what it's just asked us to do. Now, if it doesn't do that, if it doesn't meet that criteria, oh, there's my little typo. If it doesn't meet that criteria, it still needs to know what to do. So we need to give it a comma to say otherwise, and we can just say display no message, which is 2 empty quotation marks, nothing in between them. Otherwise, it'll get stuck in a loop because it'll constantly be looking for that. So let's change the form. And we got an error there because I haven't named a field, which I just remembered as I did it. So money expected, which is this one here. Let's go over here to all, and its name needs to be money expected. I change the view. There we go. No message because we've got nothing in there. So once you've got your form like this with all the features in it, you can compare it to the table here. So we've got, sorry, the past paper. This has got everything for that question there. Like I said, this is the hardest one. There's a lot to take in that last one. I'm going to do a few more walkthroughs of part B with some more of these, with some more of the calculated things that you can put in there. It's really important that you attempt each section of it when you have a go, because you'll get credit for everything that you attempt. Even if it doesn't work or it's wrong, you will get credit for anything that's close or on the right lines, uses the right fields, uses the right tables, etc. Anything like that, they will give you positive marking for. So it's really important that you don't get put off by the difficulty of the question and that you attempt it. They don't expect many people to get full on this at all. Okay, the only thing left then is testing here. So testing is very, very simple. It gives you the testing. So there are 6 to complete. They'll give you the document, which you'll have in the exam, and you just simply screenshot and explain your evidence for each one. Be honest if it passes or fails, because you need to make sure that it reflects the work that you've attempted in the exam. Like it says there, 20 minutes on that activity, and then the evaluation. So how well do you think your user interface works? If I was to look at mine now, there's no instruction, the heading is wrong, nothing centered or lined up. There's lots to improve on this, same with my other one. So before you get to the evaluation, make sure your forms look good, and then make sure you mention that you've done those things in your form for your strengths. And if you haven't, identify it as a weakness, but you should be doing those things to make sure that they're appropriate for their usage. And that is the end of that unit. I'll do some more walkthroughs now of part B to go with this. I'll try and cover as many of the different skills that you need to tackle, especially activity B.